Hi everyone, it's Zazoo Plazz here, author of Audacious Adventures of Zazoo Plazz, part-time superhero, full-time mom, May 14th, 2020. Welcome back. And today I'm going to talk to you about one of my adventures that I realized took place 35 years ago this week. This picture popped up in my Facebook feed. Guess who that is? There I am, dressed in my bright yellow for Gemini season, this was around June, I think June of 1985. And I am standing in the Parque Güell, in front of a famous statue. The whole park was built by Antonio Gaudí, very famous architect. He built this whole park in Barcelona, Spain. And I'm standing at the very entrance to it, my little 80s parachute pants and my little crop top. Love that outfit. See me, I got my big hair, my big poodle ear hair. So, best part of that trip was all the cool stuff we got to see. And I didn't go by myself. It was led by a professor from the University of Connecticut. Her name was Janet Moriarty, and I'm going to be writing about her, I think, in the next book. She's since passed away, but she took us, a bunch of us college students, on a trip of a lifetime. And I have a whole photo album. Yeah, I have a photo album. Here I am with my friends, all of us. I'm not going to show you now because I have an actual signed photo by Adolfo Suarez, who was the former Prime Minister of Spain. He founded the Democratic Central Party. And I actually got to meet with him and with all my classmates. So I have a whole album of pictures here that I'll show. They may end up in some of my books, but I'm not going to show you right now. This is the one photo that I'm going to show today, because there's so many stories that go with each photo, and I kind of file it under, did I really do that? Was I really there? And all these years later, I'm sort of hungering for the like-minded souls who can compare notes with me, So many of us from our group have just dispersed all over the place, and I don't know where people are, even though I've searched. I think a couple of them are still in Connecticut, but you go on a trip like that and you form bonds with people because you've experienced the same kinds of things, the same, we've gone through these adventures. And so it was about a month and a half studying contemporary Spain at a school in Madrid. And then we dabbled in a lot of the culture. We went to museums. We didn't just go to museums. We went in and out of museums all the time. Famous buildings in Spain. Just, in the days before cell phones, we had our cameras. It was an extraordinary trip, and having to be independent at 19, I went. And I was thinking the other day, my son Brennan is the exact same age that I was when I went to Spain. And he's having a very different kind of year than I had when I was there. Mine was very much out in the world. kind of experience, and his is much more stuck in his room. And yet, in some ways, the world is smaller, I think, because of the internet, I suppose. But, I treasure my experiences, and I have lots of interesting stories that I can now share with the world, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's a way for me to satisfy that thirst, that hunger, um, by revisiting, some of those places in my dreams, through my spirit, through my through my higher self, and getting insights into things that, even back then I may not have understood. Having the benefit of cyberspace now, I can go back and look things up and say, oh, okay, and I can put things in perspective. That's the beauty of 2020 hindsight, right? See what I did there? Being able to look back at an experience and say, oh, okay, that's what that was all about. Putting it in perspective of astrology, time, of the whole picture, 54 years of life and a half. And I thought at one time that kind of lifestyle, with, going back forth to Europe and learning and experiencing, and that was perhaps at one time, my dream lifestyle. And of course now the world is a much different place. So I'm having to reconsider, is that what I meant to do? And I remember when I got back from that trip, I struggled to explain my experiences to people back home, my family, other friends. Some friends actually did go to Spain and were there when I was there. And that was really cool, because we wrote each other letters. And, when I got back, we compared notes. But for the most part, it's, and maybe astronauts feel a little bit like that when they come back to Earth and they have to explain. Even if you have pictures, it's hard to explain to people what you've been through. It's reminds me of that song by Train, Drops of Jupiter. Since her return, stay on the moon. She whistles like spring, she talks like June. Something like that. Remember that song, Drops of Jupiter? Those are probably not the words, so don't quote me on that. But it was a Train song. And Drops of Jupiter. And my Jupiter happens to be in my 10th house, just on the edge of Gemini and Cancer. So that song kind of did express, even though it came out years later. When I came back, I was a little, I guess what you call it is kind of hovering between two worlds. The world that back in Connecticut, back in the U.S., that I had left, the world I had just come back from, and another world, which was the new world of me living in my old world. It's kind of like having an old vase that your grandmother gave you, and you pick some flowers out in the garden, you fill up the old vase and put the new flowers in there. There's something about that contrast, the old vase with the new flowers. Kind of, or like when you renovate one part of your house, right? And then you look at the rest of the house. by comparison. You say, you know what, now we need to do that room. Actually, let's just get a whole new house. Right? Because that's how life works, I guess. I'm still learning this stuff, just like you know. But yeah, it's kind of like the putting the new wine in the old skins kind of metaphor. Whew. I think that's enough for today. Yep. Yes, the cards say that's enough for today, Zazoo. Okay. So, anyway, stay tuned. Buenas noches. Buenos días. Adiós. Hasta la vista. Amigos. Amigas. Amigos. Adiós.